You're probably doing something else right now. Not because you're bored, not because this isn't interesting, but because sitting still with one thing feels wrong, uncomfortable, almost irresponsible, like you're wasting time. That feeling isn't random. In America, multitasking isn't just normal, it's moral. It's treated like proof of worth. People don't ask what you're doing anymore, they ask how many things you're doing at once. And if the answer is just one, it sounds suspicious, like you're hiding something or falling behind. Multitasking is sold as a skill, but it's really just a socially acceptable panic response. It feels impressive because it feels like control, like you're bending time itself and squeezing more life into fewer hours. But you're not expanding time, you're fracturing attention. You're smearing your focus across everything like cheap peanut butter, thin, uneven, and never enough anywhere. You're not efficient, you're diluted. Somewhere along the way, doing one thing well became a red flag. Deep focus started to look antisocial. Calm concentration started to look lazy. Americans don't trust stillness, we trust chaos. Chaos looks like effort. Chaos looks like hustle. Chaos looks promotable, even if nothing actually gets finished. So we brag about multitasking the same way people brag about surviving on 4 hours of sleep, like self-destruction is a personality trait. You answer emails during meetings that exist because nobody answers emails. You half-watch shows you'll later claim you've seen, even though you couldn't describe a single character if your life depended on it. Your brain jumps between tasks like a caffeinated squirrel in traffic, and then you act shocked when you're mentally fried by noon. Multitasking is just stress with better branding. It's anxiety wearing a productivity costume. The American dream used to be about freedom. Now it's about being permanently busy so nobody questions your value. Stillness looks like laziness. Silence looks like disengagement. Rest looks suspicious. You're not allowed to just do one thing anymore. Even eating has to be efficient. You're not having lunch, you're grabbing something real quick while answering texts, checking notifications, planning dinner, and wondering why your chest feels tight for no clear reason. Your brain never lands. It just keeps circling, like it's afraid to touch down. And every task switch feels small, harmless, insignificant. But your brain pays a tax every time. Attention doesn't teleport, it reloads. Context has to rebuild, and by the end of the day, you're exhausted not because you worked too hard, but because you restarted your mind 100 times. That's why everyone feels behind. You're buffering your own life. Multitasking survives because it gives you an excuse. If nothing gets done, it's not your fault, you were just doing a lot. Quantity replaces quality. Motion replaces meaning. Being busy becomes a substitute for being effective. You look active, responsive, involved, even when nothing meaningful is happening. If you're half listening right now while doing something else, which you probably are, notice how familiar that feels. This isn't productivity, it's avoidance. Multitasking keeps you from fully failing, but it also keeps you from fully succeeding. You're always busy enough to feel important, but never present enough to feel satisfied. Americans love looking overwhelmed because it signals importance. If you're busy, you matter. If you're calm, people assume you've checked out or given up. That's why we stack tasks like Jenga blocks and then act surprised when the whole thing collapses. Modern work culture rewards visibility, not effectiveness. If your Slack status is green and you respond instantly, you're a hero, even if your actual output is aggressively mediocre. Humans are terrible at multitasking, just hardwired that way. The very act of trying to do multiple things at once makes you less effective at every single one. Phones turn this into a full-blown epidemic. We all walk around with tiny dopamine machines in our pockets and then wonder why focus feels impossible. You sit down to do something meaningful and suddenly you're checking notifications that don't matter, arguing with strangers you'll never meet, and watching clips you won't remember. Multitasking turns life into a blur of distractions. Nothing sinks in. Nothing sticks. Everything feels disposable, including your attention. Over time, this does something worse than making you tired. It reshapes how you see yourself. When your attention is always divided, your sense of identity starts to fragment too. You stop feeling like a person doing things and start feeling like a task manager with a pulse. You're no longer living experiences, you're processing inputs. Even rest gets multitasked to death. You're quote-unquote relaxing while scrolling, watching, snacking, listening, and somehow still feeling tired afterward, like you took a nap inside a shopping mall. That's because real rest is quiet, and quiet makes people uncomfortable. Silence doesn't reward you instantly. It doesn't buzz. It doesn't validate you. It forces you to sit with your own thoughts, and most people haven't done that in years. The uncomfortable truth is that multitasking feels productive because it protects you from depth. Real focus is slow. It's boring at first. It doesn't give dopamine hits every 10 seconds, and Americans hate that. We want progress we can feel immediately, even if it's fake. We want movement we can see, even if it goes nowhere. So we juggle tasks badly, burn out, and then buy planners, apps, and podcasts to help us manage the chaos we refuse to let go of. We don't question the system, we just try to optimize ourselves inside it. Multitasking isn't a skill, it's a symptom. It's what happens when a culture confuses movement with meaning and noise with success. And if you ever feel like you're running all day but never arriving anywhere, it's not because you're lazy. It's not because you lack discipline or motivation. It's because you were trained to live this way. Trained to equate busyness with worth. Trained to fear stillness. Trained to do everything halfway instead of one thing well. You weren't designed for this pace. You were conditioned into it. You don't notice the damage right away because multitasking doesn't fail loudly. It fails quietly. It slowly erodes your ability to stay with anything long enough to care. Your memory gets softer. Your patience gets thinner. You consume more and retain less. That's because attention isn't just about productivity. It's about identity. What you pay attention to shapes what you feel and who you become. And if this felt uncomfortably accurate, don't worry, you're not alone. This channel exists for people who still notice when something feels off. Stick around.